Yes. Okay, welcome everyone to City of Sunbury Parks and Recreation Committee meeting for March 1st, 2023. It is about 5:30 p.m. How about a roll call, Amber?
Mr. Ghost,
Here.
Mr. Grumney,
Here.
and Mr. Martin.
Here.
Three present.
All right, thank you. Let's go to the minutes from our last meeting on February 1st, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Martin,
Second.
second by Mr. Grumney. Any further discussion? Roll call, Amber.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
and Mr. Ghost.
Yes,
Three ayes.
minutes pass. Okay, let's go to the visitors section. I don't see a single soul out there this evening. I don't blame anyone. It's a nice day as it is. So let's go right to our unfinished business. And first up is our continuing discussion about the Parks Master Plan. J.R. Smith and how that factors in with the town square here area and then revitalizing it. And the surrounding area as well, and how we want to proceed with all that. I think last time we left it, we instructed CT to take a look at the master plan of each area and see if we need to revise anything, or if we're at a point now where we can move forward. I think, in my opinion, I'd like to see us do something with J.R. Smith. Drill that down, maybe do some conceptual plans, get them posted, and then get the town hall scheduled and see where that goes with the public feedback. And then we can continue to work on the square and surrounding areas. But at any rate, I think we have Dan White here tonight with CT instead of our Wesley Hall. So Dan, what can you add?
Thank you. Mr. Hall sends his regrets. I believe you've got a PowerPoint.
Yes, we do.
Wes had gone through, he dug through our files from CT and Floyd Brown from the past and put together, here we go, packet of information. And I will apologize that I don't know everything about this stuff. I didn't have the time that he did to dig into it, but he did, he said that he would like to go over this and have some discussion on it, focused on the town square, streetscapes, parks, pedestrian connections, and connection to J.R. Smith, as you mentioned. So if you get it going. I just go ahead to advance it to the next slide. This was, well, we got our, there you go, thank you. The 2005 to 2005 to 2007 street lighting and signal improvement plans that were done. And I know you can hardly see any of that, but these were one of the efforts that were accomplished in the past. You can go ahead to the next slide. That's not very readable. And here was a some 2016 town center planning. You can see here they were taking the square and plotting the parks and other different amenities that are nearby. I believe the size of the bubble is relevant to the size of the feature that's being identified. And I know you probably can't read those either. I can't even read them on the fly. So there's that. And there's here was a more detailed map that he's put together just recently. This is probably where we want to talk about. He kind of has this in the middle of the presentation, but he's working on drafting a map to identify needs. He has to do some more work, and he spent most of his time doing some research. We can go through the rest of this and probably come back to this slide. Here was the 2015 town square master plan, which pretty detailed, showed the work that was done on the corners, mainly some landscaping, some brickwork, and a few other things were done. Go ahead.
So those improvements that weren't necessarily made, those are plans.
That's correct. I'm sorry. Yes. And here was a parking analysis that CT had done in 2016. He said blue areas identified as parking. That one over to the east there. That's the alley area identified as a parking spot. You can go ahead to the next slide. Again, this was just focusing on that little area off of Vernon Street. And again, more detail on the parking plans that this was built.
Mhm.
Master plan that was prepared. I believe I might have been the village engineer when this was prepared. I should know a little more about it, but this was done in 2013, Floyd Brown. Just starting to look at some of the work on the square, and there's another
113, it says
2003. I'm sorry,
Okay,
2013. Sorry, Dave.
it's all right.
Next slide. And then here's detail on that one. I can't see these very well. I assume you can't either. So, hey, thank you. Sorry, well, then I don't have my readers.
Oh, yeah, that problem.
We can, if we want to zoom in on anything, these things after we finish this slideshow, we can do that. I think there's only a few more slides left, so you go ahead and advance it. Again, more of the 2003 master planning that FBG had done, including some identification for flags and landscaping. Okay. Here's some of the renderings from that you can see. There's Fling Hardware in that first picture there, I believe.
Yeah, I noticed on that slide there onto the left, you've got the sitting wall,
Yes, you got the seat wall there on the left at the bottom.
runs across Cherry Street there. And there's another one I think you have coming up for Granville too.
Yes, sir. And more of that same detail. And additional,
I'm sure the owner of Sir would be happy to see something happen there.
yeah,
You don't really quite notice what a difference that would make, but just as it is now, and you're like, oh, okay, but then when you look at what it could be, it's like, that's pretty sharp looking.
and this type of work definitely makes a huge aesthetic difference as well as a functional friendly pedestrian access type of arrangement. And some of the work that we had done like this in Worthington by the Worthington Mall has really opened up that area to more pedestrian access. It needs a pedestrian bridge, but other than that, it's exactly this type of work with some of the brick and landscaping at the corners and some improvement of the sidewalks, some sitting areas, ramps, and maybe some signage and landscaping as well.
You know, they say at the Worthington Mall there.
Yeah, right around West Wilson Bridge Road.
Mhm.
Realigned that road coming out of there, and they put the new development where Holiday Inn is.
Mhm.
In the corner there at Wilson and High was improved, and they're gonna go over to the next street down as well and do some of that.
I have to take a look at that.
Okay. And I honestly don't know in detail what this one is.
Vernon Street.
That's Vernon Street. I think we've accomplished a lot of that, if I'm not mistaken. Steve, Daryl, pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one that has been done.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, okay. All righty. Yeah, and I know I think you guys were looking at this recently looking back at the master plan, identifying some of the projects that were identified. I know I was using it when I was helping out with J.R. Smith and the Reservoir Pond Park over there is just sort of identifying the location of these different areas in relation to the city.
One of the things Wes talked about back when I was still village administrator was changing the direction of the parking spaces on Vernon Street
Mhm.
so that people would drive up and then back into their parking place so that when they were ready to leave, they could pull out frontward so they had have better vision
Mhm.
of what was coming and going, because it caused fewer accidents than people backing out into traffic. And I didn't know, he said there were some communities that were trying that. Have you ever heard anything about how successful it is?
Marion has done that in front of the theater, in front of the city offices there, where the police, they've done it there, and they require you to back into those spaces. They're exactly that same kind of arrangement.
And do they have signage up?
They do have signs that say, thou must pull in reverse. Which is kind of not aesthetically pleasing in my opinion, but it is definitely safer. Because when you can see what kind of
Yeah.
traffic you're encountering. There's And here as well as there's some, you know, relatively fast traffic or even pedestrians in the way, so. Not everybody checks their backup camera like they should. Okay.
And if you have a 24-year-old car, it doesn't have a,
It's got a rearview mirror, right?
yeah.
Here's the Reservoir Park Master Plan, and we are working on this right now. We're gonna we need to get some more survey information. We'll send the crews out here 13th, 14th, but I believe you've seen all of this. If not, I can go
Yes,
over it.
yeah.
But okay.
I don't think anything's changed,
No.
the past 6 months or so there
No, sir.
on that plan.
Don't, yeah, okay. Next slide. And this is the Freedom Park Master Plan, which we've looked at a little bit. I think this is directly from the
Mhm.
master plan itself. We began to do some additional work, but we stopped to focus on this town square area. Okay. The trails is
Mhm.
talking about the location of trails and where they are. Next. Okay, might want to go back to that one.
JR
master sheet.
There you go, right there.
Um,
So this is J.R. Smith, and I believe this rendering is the most recent one we've discussed here in Parks. Has the splash pad, playground, pavilion, the perimeter walkway path. Basketball courts there that we want to redo, and then we have the parking lot. And exercise stations are part of that plan too. So I think we're ready to move forward. Daryl, Steve, maybe we could have some of your input, and Dan as well, but in my opinion, I think it's time for us to roll this out to the public in some town hall way, shape, or form. So that would mean CT creating some kind of poster size detailed renderings for that event and coming up with a good date for that event. And then in the meantime, we focus on the background, refocus again on in the background on the other items, the town hall and square, I should say the town square revitalization, the streetscape, the parking, and the trail, and the connectivity of all that. Does that sound like a good plan of action?
So the one question I would have, we can definitely do that. We had talked about doing 2 town hall meetings, one like an evening during the week and then a Saturday morning option, I think, as well. So we can begin to look for dates and get that scheduled. The question is, do we have updated pricing, cost estimates on this?
Yeah, that's the next step. I've got to have that part of it.
Rich Washington in our office is working on that. I honestly don't know if he's finished it or not. He's probably really close to it.
And we can have that available for the town hall meeting,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Okay, good deal.
And Wes did want me to mention in your OneDrive folder, there's some information on potential funding sources, and he was going to get into that in a little bit more detail with Daryl and Steve and talk about some of those options that are available.
Excellent. That's what we need. Any Dave or John, do you have any other comment on J.R. Smith and how the most recent plan is? Do you feel like that's the appropriate one to roll out, at least for feedback? And we can always change it after we get the feedback, but
Just procedurally, I guess, I'm just asking the question, do we take what we're recommending to the full council before we go to say to get a rendering, or is that something that this Parks Committee does, and then how does that work? Do we get feedback from the rest of the council, or I don't know how that?
I don't think we need that. I think it might be helpful.
I just didn't know procedurally if we know, if you take what the committee's recommending and then show it to council before it would go off and get drawn up and date set and that sort of thing.
What do you guys think down there?
I think that'd be wise, just so somebody's not surprised.
Mhm.
I don't think they would be. I think they've been hearing about this, but yeah, I
Okay.
think that makes sense to make sure you have a consensus among your council before you roll it out to the public, for sure.
I'll mention that in in my report tonight. We can bring this slide up. We can have that ready, Amber. And we'll see what the rest of the council members have to say.
All right, so we'll look for dates. I'll work with the chair then to identify a couple of dates that we can pitch to the public. Again, with the understanding that we'll get some blow up materials from you guys as well as some pricing information.
Out of curiosity, are you thinking like a charrette style meeting or workshop or? So we might want to bring some boards to do like the sticky notes on what their most important things.
Yes.
are, those kind of things.
Definitely.
And then so we'd have to have several of these exhibits too, maybe an aerial of existing condition and then the proposed and maybe some details for the basketball court, that kind of stuff. Okay. I just want to clarify what we need to put together.
Workshop type.
Okay.
Anything further on that topic? Daryl, anything further?
On that topic, you mean J.R. Smith or on kind of the central core
Both.
amendment?
Both.
I did think we want to go back maybe to the needs table.
I
If we
agree.
could. So go back,
It's on the beginning.
get closer to the beginning.
I think I was around slide 5. No,
You're getting close.
right
There
there.
it is.
There it is. Number 4.
Yeah, and then,
And Wes did want me to, again, I apologize, I don't know the detail of these things, but he suggests a light master plan and in that we don't spend too much time on it, but evaluating some of the stuff we've done in the past, take it forward, sort of modernize it and list out the needs and potential projects and prioritize them, develop the scope.
Yeah, I like what's been presented for each area thus far. I know it's been several years, but I don't think a lot has changed in terms of what we want to do. I could be wrong, but I do agree, maybe some moderation, updating of some kind, but not a whole lot.
Okay.
yeah, so, but maybe a couple of things, right? So parking number 4, that's going to be that new green space right next to the square. So it's P4 on your list. I mean, we haven't really talked about how important that is to the committee, although again, we're about to have a green space there. P5, again, another piece of green space coming into play in the central core that, again, maybe it's not a priority yet, but something for the group. And then one thing that Wes has been talking a great deal about is connecting, again, whether that's through a sort of an official connection between Town Hall and J.R. Smith Park via, that parking space PL1.
Yes, next to the tavern, trying to somehow work an alley through there or expand, the alternative would be to expand Granville. And have a walking path or bike lane.
So I think maybe what's helpful is if there's any reaction to any of those items from this group would help. And then maybe the chairman, maybe I can start to get us into a kind of a bi-weekly rhythm with the planning team. So that in between, there's a little bit more talk so we can get closer to that scope faster.
Yes.
That would help. So
Yes, we have done that the past couple of months. Let's continue to do that.
let's do that.
By all means, yes. And yes, what you said, Mr. Hennessy, I think right on point. We want to focus on those green areas, drill those down a little bit. They're very important, the connection to J.R. Smith and the square and adding something there at P5, which is the Martindale corner, the green space. I think we can do better there. And of course, the new area that's coming up on P4, once the demo is done, what do we want to do there? And of course, the connection of the trail and how all that, maybe there's a way we talked about Crowell Drive. And
Is there a reason why we have 2 P5s?
I did not see.
Where's the other one?
The second one.
Next to R7.
Okay, that one I see. That's the ODOT lot.
Mhm.
One on the corner of Cherry and.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Yes, it is.
I guess the ODOT number is wrong. Okay.
Okay.
P6 will be Martindale or
I
ODOT?
think that's ODOT
Okay.
sequentially.
This one's
It would
fine.
make sense.
Eagle Eye Martin, thank you for that. Okay, well then I'll get that meeting scheduled again, to drill down a little bit more on the scope and hopefully get back to this group, get the next meeting with something in writing. You can see where CT would be headed or will be headed.
So, sounds good. Sounds good. Anything further? Dan?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to our next item on the list. We have the Delaware Public Health District Healthy Living Grant. Was that you, Amber? All right, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to tomorrow, actually, is their partnership meeting in Delaware, where there's going to be more discussion about this and the grant. Haley invited me to it, so we'll learn a little more. But we've just been kind of going over ideas on what we could use it for, but she did say it could be used for signages on trails, so.
Yeah, I like that idea. We definitely have a need for that. And we've talked about that. So maybe that's our focus. How soon do we need to sort of make a decision and make the applicant apply for this?
Yeah, I think it's due at the end of March, isn't it?
March, I want to say the 20th.
And we had, yeah.
To me.
Submit by 4 p.m. on Wednesday, March 29th.
So we'll have to have some sort of advice via email, I suppose, in the next week or so, right?
Yeah, so one idea that Steve had mentioned to me that I think we wanted to share, if you like in this direction. And if you do, I think we then thought was maybe we could get something typed up in front of council then for the 15th, say yes.
Sure.
Proceed with a grant that looks something like this. So we do know there's some interest in the community garden concept. So that's one, but the other kind of general thought was maybe a little bit more in terms of bike racks in the downtown, maybe some senior friendly benches. We've talked about that so that you've got maybe encourage more mobility of seniors in and around the downtown, wayfinding signage that connects to the trail and connects to the downtown. As maybe kind of the parameters. I mean, we could put more around this, but yeah, it sounds like that's an option. Or again, maybe the community garden is an option. I just
Those three are good, solid ideas.
I like the idea of the bike racks, because if we're encouraging mobility and getting around and using Sunbury,
Mhm.
I think that's a really good idea.
And we're not talking about a lot at stake here financially. It's just a few $1,000s possible. Is that right?
Yes,
Less than 10, right?
probably less than
Probably,
5.
yeah.
maybe around 3.
Okay.
15,000 is the grant.
Okay.
Available fund.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll see what happens in a couple of weeks.
okay.
Or what comes forward from
Put
you.
some verbiage together for council to chew on.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Okay, let's go to new business. That was our first item on new business. The next item is parks programming.
Yes.
Mr. Hennessy, do you have something there?
I do. This is we wanted a little bit of feedback.
Mhm.
You'll see on the agenda under kind of parks updates, informational items, there's a significant golf tournament that's going to happen over at Freedom Park.
Disc
And-
golf tournament.
Disc golf, thank you. Not a golf tournament, but a disc golf tournament. Which got me thinking a little bit about, as we think about our parks, mostly they're passive uses at the moment. But we do have that asset of the disc golf
Mhm.
facility. Has there been any thought to, if the city were to try to activate that space a little bit more with kind of league play or something? And I'm not saying that, we'll create a league, but maybe we can find others who might want to host a league and maybe sort of make that available and start to, again, maybe just generate a little bit more interest around the use of that asset in our park by some others. Now, having said that, not all of the participants will be residents of Sunbury. They'll be coming in from outside of the city. And the facility is not perfectly suited because you don't have a restroom down near the disc golf establishment anyway. And it would take staff resources to commit to, activating the programming a little bit more. Maybe you want to direct staff's time in other ways as it relates to the parks. I think I'm just asking, has there been thought about this? Have you thought, do you like the idea? Hate the idea? Just let it kind of continue to play out the way that it is?
Back when I was village administrator,
I thought you might start with
the
that.
president of the Disc Golf Association in Central Ohio told me that Sunbury's disc golf course was one of the best in the entire Central Ohio area.
Yes, that's
That's
good.
also what.
They actually come up and help make sure that the baskets were in the right order and everything was good with them. They'd come up and do some mowing and trimming around certain areas. And they volunteered their time to do that for us. And so the course has a good reputation.
Yeah.
So
I mean, so Amber, as she said, has done a little bit of research on what it would take to, if we were to set up.
I also, the people that are sponsoring their tournament on March 19th invited me out and have offered their resources. And if we need help setting it up, or because there's a lot of rules that go into official disc golf tournaments. They have offered, Old Tangy Disc Golf Club has offered their assistance to me. So, and that's the one they're bringing in the bathroom, and their thing is you have 45 seconds to use the restroom during a tournament.
Oh, gee. It's rolling on the bathroom.
Holy.
It's in the official rules.
Somebody got a clock or they're timing that?
They do, if you miss it, you don't come back and get penalized. So they've offered my help. I told them that we were gonna present it and then I'd get back to them. So whatever you guys would like me to do, I can move forward with theirs.
And we don't need a definitive
Yeah.
answer, but do you
Right.
like in this direction? Do you prefer that we just leave our parks in kind of passive uses for the time being? And, as we build resources over time, maybe we start to build in.
How many people typically come to a tournament like this?
Well, this
Like,
is gonna be pretty sizable.
They have 75 people coming.
I'm assuming
Entrance or participants.
participants, let alone.
Mhm.
I mean, so as far as Sunbury resources, obviously it's just providing the course. I mean, do we have to provide any type of security or, any other type of city resource being used to put this
Yeah.
on?
What was the date they proposed? Did they have a date?
They do this one, March.
March 19th, I believe.
Okay. There's nothing else happening that we're aware of on that date. Is that a Saturday?
It's a Sunday.
It's a Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Martin, do you remember who built the course? Was it Columbus Flyers or?
I honestly, that was before my time. Yeah, it was there before I became village administrator, so I don't know that.
Are we
Yeah,
that?
so a couple of things. I mean, we might have to upgrade I don't know what you'd call those. Is that a hole? I guess it's a hole, right? You have
Basket.
a basket. We might have to repair a basket or two to kind of get it into the right condition. You do need a commissioner to basically run a league. Somebody has to be qualified to do that. Again, Amber started to do the research. It's not like you have to be this wizard, but there's a little bit of organizing around that, right? And then teams are signing up and you're promoting it and somebody's sort of documenting the kind of who's in first and who's not in first type stuff. So it doesn't have to be a big undertaking. It can just kind of be the beginnings of something basic, but at a minimum, there would be that kind of work involved.
For
But
this,
yeah, I don't,
for
yeah,
this event?
for disc golf. Not for
Not for this.
I don't know, it's a
You
lot
want
to do,
Tangy?
but-
They are good. to
There's
go.
none with the whole show.
Yeah, that is just informational for you,
Okay.
just to know that there's a group that's coming out and gonna be at the park that day and
I
it's a
mean,
Sunday morning.
do they rotate? Is it like the PGA where they rotate different courses around the state or Central Hunt? So like we could be a stop. I mean, I could see being a
Yeah.
stop. I mean, I could see you got all that green space for food trucks and I mean, you could really make it an event, but
Mhm.
Are
Are we charging a fee? Has that been discussed at all? Or have they asked?
We hadn't talked about it. Maybe that's something we could look into. Amber, why don't you do that? Just see if other leagues, how they, yeah.
I'm not
What's the
necessarily
entry?
inclined to do it either way. I'm just curious to know what the precedent is and what.
They have entry fees that don't go towards anything except for like paying for the portable toilet and stuff like that. So it goes towards the event. But yes, they have entry fees to play, basically.
Right, and if you were to set up a league, there probably is a fee to be a part of it, but again, we'd have to maybe research that a little bit more. See what the going rate might look like and.
Mhm.
We had that discussion years ago about charging a fee for groups to come in and use it and everything. But then the question came up, well, if the person lives in Sunbury, they shouldn't have to pay a fee to use their parks. And it got very convoluted at that point, going round and round and round, trying to figure out what was the right solution. So we just left it be, you know, you get the rate for the food trucks, you rate for the outhouses, and then use the course with our blessing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the other thing. I mean, we're not trying to tie up the course for, 5 nights a week, 7 nights a week,
Right,
whatever the case
yeah.
may be. I mean, I think one of the things you've learned is that it's not uncommon for it to be 1 night a week, right? That was kind of the pattern, yeah.
Mhm.
So for, a resident who's interested in just using the course, there may be a couple of times that they wouldn't gain access to it because of, this other group using it.
Right.
But most of the time it would remain open.
Yeah.
But that's a fair point.
I like the idea. It brings people here to see the city. Maybe patronize our local businesses before or after, right? I don't see any major downside to that, obviously. We're in charge of maintaining and maintaining that park, that disc golf park right now, correct?
We do a little work on it. I think, see, that's kind of why I was asking who the sponsor of it was, because I think you would want to, if they're putting their volunteer time into maintaining it, you want to make sure that they're okay with, having something more official go on there.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there was a question, I think, about that last year when I first started, who Alan, I think the previous administrator, maybe had some interaction with that group and did try to research his email account, see if we could find it. Didn't find a lot. So we'd still need to do some research around that, to find who that person or the organization might be. But maybe as a final point, what I'd say is, in some ways, this is maybe an extension of what we're doing with SourcePoint, right? We wanted to do more programming in the city. This would be just another group. So maybe now is a good time. So I think we've got enough feedback to kind of keep going, and we can come back and report what we learn. And
I'm favorable of
Yeah.
pursuing down that path.
you definitely find, again, who put it in and kind of what their sense of ownership is about it. But
I think there's even a plaque there. Right as you walk in, I think there's,
well,
there used to be.
go look for a plaque.
I will go look for it.
But the other thing, we've had, I think, some success with the SourcePoint programming. So Amber, why don't you tell them kind of what's going on with that?
Well, we had our first gathering this year, on February 20th. We had 17 people show up. We played some games and stuff. All the feedback I'm getting from the residents that are coming, they really love it. It's close. SourcePoint is out on Cheshire.
Mhm.
There's a couple that they just don't feel comfortable driving out that way, because of their own personal reasons. But next month we are hosting, there's going to be live music at that one, and some small snacks and food. I found that if you feed them, they will come. So nothing big, just finger foods. And then we've worked on the rest of the quarter. She's going to give me the dates for those as well. And she
When you
wanted
say next month, do you mean this month?
this month. Yeah, I guess, yes.
Since
the
it is
20th
next
of
month,
this month.
then, yeah.
Are you gonna come? There, we're gonna line
What is the
dance.
date?
Line
It's
dance.
the 20th. It's the third Monday of each month. So it's right here at Town Hall. There'll be live music and line dancing this time.
Third Monday every month down below.
Down below. And it's been, they're wonderful. SourcePoint is wonderful. And each time we've gotten 1 or 2 new faces that I haven't seen before. So
And anyone, any resident, any senior
yeah,
citizen.
anyone 55 and older can come.
Okay.
I'll
56.
be 55 soon.
Oh, good, good.
50. That means I could qualify. Goodness.
All right, that's
Okay.
what we've got on that. So, yep.
That's good stuff. Thanks. All right.
What time on the third Wednesday?
It's from 1 to 3. We're gonna be learning the electric slide as well, so you brush up on that.
You'll be able to attend any wedding you want to. and do that.
I'll take care of it. Okay, we have one more item left here, calendar of events.
We got the J.R. Smith Lions building.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, J.R. Smith Lions Building. Steve, can you tell us where we are on that?
Yeah.
What's happening over there?
So we've got a punch list of things that need to happen.
Mhm.
Should look at that and then I'll kind of go through it.
Mhm. And this is just the one building. It has the lion insignia on it, right?
Correct, yeah, the one that's got the line in relief.
Mhm.
So the first two things we can do in-house, we'll need money to buy the materials, but we can do those in-house. We talked at great length about the pros and cons of fully replacing the windows. I think probably the best way to go is to replace the broken glass. And I've found a couple vendors that have rock and vandal resistant screening that doesn't look institutional. It's still kind of, it's a little, when you look outside, it looks a little darker than screens, but it's still, it's not like a matrix looking thing. So,
Mhm.
and that's just an estimate. We've got to, get the number of windows, tell them how big they are and see what they would do. The HVAC system there is kaput, and the water heater's kaput. So we've got some money for HVAC and plumbing.
HVAC, you also referring to the actual furnace itself?
Yes,
And that replacement is included in that?
yes.
Okay.
Again, these are budgetary estimates at this point. We haven't gotten to the point of actually,
We are currently trying to maintain heat though. At that building or not?
no, we're
We're
not.
not. Okay,
Yeah.
plumbing's been,
Yeah, we've gotten the water off and the plumbing's been
Okay.
winterized to where we haven't broken any pipes. There's 3 entrance doors. To get a good steel door, you're looking at $750 and then $1,000 to do some additional lighting and get some decent locks for it. So a fairly significant investment. But
have we talked or circled back with the Lions Club folks?
not recently. A couple emails will get exchanged about, hey, when can we get together? And then it just kind of falls down. I think they may have some higher ideas about like having a wet, kind of a mini kitchen wet bar up on the first floor. Would be, would get expensive. So I'll tickle that group and see if I can't.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
Maybe with this kind of listing,
Mhm.
I can get some motion on that going again.
Yeah, I think that's a good next step. Reach out to them, show them we're ready to move forward in some way, shape or form, preferably with the items shown here. And let's see if they are willing to participate in some way. They still plan to use the building, right?
I believe they would like to use the building, yes. Oh, and the other thing is pretty much the furnishings are gone. Were either damaged or most of them were damaged, so.
Some tables and chairs.
Yeah, we're gonna need some tables and
Is
chairs.
there any thought, Steve, and especially if J.R. Smith Park eventually goes through an upgrade of security cameras kind of pointed, towards park, towards the building to.
Mhm. Yeah, we've talked about that.
Okay.
We do have internet coming into that building now, so yeah, we could easily expand and have an exterior camera that's looking at the park.
Yeah, motion detection, lighting,
Mhm.
all that good stuff.
Yeah.
We have got to do everything we can to mitigate the future vandalism issues. Speaking of the vandalism,
Mhm.
what happened with that case, Steve?
A couple of them were. A couple were dismissed.
Hmm.
I think about 3 of them were pushed it to the point of a trial or a hearing in front of a judge. We're getting small restitution payments from 2, and one person pretty much made their full restitution payment.
Okay,
They,
how much do we expect in the end?
maybe 2 or maybe $3,000, because they kind of subdivided it by the number of people that were involved in it.
Is that over the course of the next year or two, or how far out?
Yeah, I'd say in the next year, they should all be caught up.
Okay, are we keeping that money somewhere in escrow
It's,
specifically? Or-
I don't know that the one big one I asked Kathy to at least earmark that or show it somehow,
Mhm.
but, we'll have records of what we've gotten in. If it's going into the general fund, we can just bring it out of the general fund,
Okay.
that amount, but
Okay,
obviously that won't even cover what,
yeah,
and some of this, they didn't damage the HVAC system, so that's not on.
right,
Really, it's the
windows.
top 2 items and maybe a broken window were the
Mhm.
main things that were damaged during the,
That flooring estimate, $2.50 per square foot, you thinking like some vinyl plank or
that's what
something?
it is. Yeah, it was just Menards had sent their ad in the
Mhm.
Gazette this week, so I just kind of flipped it open and
That's the material cost.
yeah, and that's, that was one of their better materials, I think.
I've looked into that. That's medium grade price.
Is it? Okay.
Should be okay for that building. Okay. Anything further on that? Okay, we can go on to the calendar of events. I think we have it here on the back of our packet, right?
Yeah, so what we wanted to show the Parks Committee, where we stand with respect to the upcoming events in the city. If we go back to the decision-making matrix that was approved by the Events Committee, and it's attached to the policy that council approved. The following items, once we have applications, we should work their way back to the Parks Committee. So all of the flea markets, so you'll have the Memorial Day, the Independence Day, and the Labor Day flea markets.
Mhm.
Sizzle and Sounds, but that one actually will work its way all the way to council, but it'll come through the Parks Committee for a recommendation. Christmas on the Square and the Fall Festival. And the reason for those is because they're closing streets around the square. So you've got an all day, well, not all day, you've got a lengthy event occurring on the square and a street closure. And that's the reason it
Mhm.
comes to the Parks Committee too. And then we do have the fishing derbies come to the Parks Board as well, mostly because they basically take the reservoirs offline for the day of the fest or the day of the derby. So that's what you should expect to see coming your way. And then anything that's a big special event that occurs at a park that's going to take up more than 6 hours or more than 25, have more than 25 people. Again, we don't know what those look like yet. I mean, this is the disc golf is a good example of one that's got 75 people, but it's less than 6 hours. So we just brought that to you as an informational item.
Mhm.
But if it ends up being more than that, again, then that begins to become an action item of the committee. So anyway, so we'll be back in front of you with those proposals after we go through the events committee and to the Parks Committee. So the rest of it is just FYI, so you know what else is going on this year.
See the Pelotonia there on August the 6th.
Yep.
We've had that before, right? Come through here.
Yes.
Was it you? Yeah, it was you that said, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that from last year.
So, yeah, but this would be a major ride through the city. So they don't do it every year. through the city. Right? I mean, this one is actually going to take up, well, the,
It's a pretty common occurrence to come through the town.
okay, okay. Okay, well, maybe the reason then that I'm hearing about it this year as opposed to the prior years is because they were changing the route. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Might be.
But it sounds like it would affect the city from, I think it was 8:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon.
Mhm.
It's going to cross both, Cherry Street and, Granville Street. So that's going to affect any
You're gonna
traffic.
come down Hartford Road and get on Rainbow,
Yep.
then take Rainbow into Columbus Street.
Oh,
And
okay.
come up and then head south on that.
Yeah. So, the police department is, working with the planning committee on street closures or not closures, but monitoring those intersections and trying to, make sure traffic gets through and
Yeah.
bicyclists get through too. So,
See, that's on a Sunday. I always thought that was on a Saturday, maybe.
so it sounds like it's a 2-day event. The day that they ride would come through, Sunbury is the Sunday.
Sunday, okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay, very good. Any
All right.
questions, concerns?
Hey, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Sure, come on up, Cindy. State your name and your street address for the record.
Your visitor section. I just wanted to say thank you and encourage the committee, all the work that you're doing with JR and the square. It's really exciting to see what you're doing, and I heard Mr. Rose make one tiny little mention and caught my ear about Crowd Drive. And I just really wanted to encourage the committee, if you haven't been over on the older side of town over there, there's a neighborhood across from the old intermediate school called the Gardens. I'm sure you're probably familiar with it. And there's a lot of folks that live back there, and they live close enough that they could walk to the square for the events, but there's no real safe way to do that. And it's too bad because all of our newer communities that are being built with the requirements that you have to have pathways and walkways. And so of course our older neighborhoods, that wasn't in play. So I really want to encourage you, if there's any way you can make pathways from those older neighborhoods as you're going through and you're thinking about this. If we could get a pathway or a safe way for the folks who live in the Gardens to come to the square, I think it would be useful.
I
Thank
think
you.
that's a good point.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's something we have talked about in our prior meetings. We do want that as part of the schedule and our planning. And I think it's the time's right too, because of the final leg of the Ohio Erie Trail and the bridge that Pres Parks and CT's working on. We can somehow maybe solve that problem. That would be good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Anything further?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion for adjournment, Mr. Martin,
Second.
second by Mr. Grundy. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes.